Good afternoon, everybody.
Hello.
Kim, I've got 2 o'clock. Do we have a quorum?
Yes, sir. We have a quorum.
All righty. We will move right into the agenda. Item 2, approval of the meeting summary from March 27th. I assume everybody's had time to review those notes. I would entertain an item to accept that.
Move to approve.
A motion?
Yep.
Second.
And I have a second. All those in favor, say aye.
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 And are there any opposed? All right, motion carries. Item number 3, discussion and recommendation of amendments to the 23-26 Transportation Improvement Program and 2045 Regional Transportation Plan. Mr. Collins.
Thanks. Just checking y'all can hear me, right?
Hear you fine.
Okay, perfect. We're just bringing back the spring amendments. So we've got the schedule out there. We brought this back as an information item last month, and then we took it to the public for some community outreach, and we also had our 2 in-person open houses on April 3rd and April 10th. One of those, we also had the public hearing at the previous Transportation Policy Board meeting. And so we're bringing these amendments back today for a recommendation from the Technical Advisory Committee, and then we'll take it back to the Policy Board on May 8th for potential approval. So just to remind everyone, sorry, let me see if I can get this thing to click. I won't go through all these amendments, but if you have any questions about them, we've got all the information there on the right side. Most of these are existing projects that we're making modifications to. There's some breakout projects from I-35. A couple of new grant-funded projects from Cap Metro, and then we've got some other changes in there as well. We're pulling a few things out. And also just a reminder that we do have 2 items, 2 potentially funded items for the carbon reduction program funding that I'm going to talk about in a future item, but those amendments are contingent on the board's action on those, but we wanted to go ahead and get those in the public. So one of the things I do want to talk about, though, is that we did complete our community outreach period. I'm going to hand that over to Joyce to talk about what we heard. So we did want to make sure that we had that closed before we asked for a recommendation. I know that was one of the things we had discussed previously, that we made sure that the comment period was closed before we came back to the Technical Advisory Committee. So I'll pass it over to Joyce, and then I'll take back over from there. So Joyce, if you want to talk about what we heard from the community. Thank you.
Thanks, Ryan. So we got a little over 400 comments for this comment period, and the vast majority of them were comments not wanting any improvements on I-35. So that was the vast majority of what we heard. We heard a couple of comments that were not wanting any ITS or TDM type programs as part of this amendment cycle. And then we also had some general comments that weren't specific to projects on this list, but we had a few comments that were wanting the 620 Anderson Mill improvement to go forward. And then also a few comments looking for improvements to 1826. So that overall is what we heard from the public on this.
Okay, thank you, Joyce. So with that, we're requesting the Technical Advisory Committee make a technical recommendation regarding the amendment process and submitted amendments. On that regard, I do want to talk about the fact that this item, the next item, and then the information item as well are all financial in nature. So when requesting a recommendation, I just want to, we want to support the Technical Advisory Committee and just want to ensure that that we're following the process that we have in place. We have a very set process on how we do amendments. So I just want to make sure that we are following that process and ensuring that the amendments are sound. So with that, we'll be requesting a recommendation. Thank you. Take any questions.
Ryan, thank you. Any questions for Ryan or Joyce on this item before we move? Mr. Watts.
Yeah, I had a
question on the I-35 comments. Could you tell, was it a form letter response that you were basically seeing, or what type of response was it? Just overall against the project, or?
It was not completely a form letter, but they were all coming from a specific email address. So we could tell that it was, a group of people who had kind of created a type of email form to be able to send in comments. So they were all very similar in nature.
It was specific to the Capital Express, or was it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
And it was remove it, or what was the ask on it?
Ask was to not have any improvements to I-35 and to consider the Rethink 35 concept.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Mendoza.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. So I think I heard you say on the TIP amendment that the two projects that were proposed to be funded through CRP funds, we understand that that's contingent on board approval, correct?
Yes. Sorry, I struggled to hear you a little bit, but yeah, the two projects, it's a ITS project and then also the Transportation Demand Management Program. Those have not been technically funded yet, but that request is going to go to the policy board prior to us requesting the amendment to be approved. So those are contingent on that. That is true. And we'll be talking about that a little bit later as well in this meeting.
Okay. Thank you for that. Apologize.
Thanks.
All right, any other questions? I will take a motion to move the item on to the policy board.
Gary, this is Mike Hodge, and I make that motion.
Thanks, Mike. Moved by Mike Hodge. Any, a second, please?
One second. This is Richard.
Joseph on the second. All right, all those in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Item number 4, discussion recommendation on Federal Transit Administration Section 5310 project call. Again, Mr. Collins.
All right, thank you so much. So just bringing back, this was another item that we presented to you last month. So this is the 5310 program. This is a grant program that we administer on behalf of Capital Metro, who is the designated recipient for this program. It's really just funds that are really targeted for supporting the mobility for seniors and individuals with disabilities. It really just kind of enhances the existing transit programs that we have, and really just targeting those and making sure that they have good transit options. So one of the things I wanted to point out that this is a 2-year call as opposed to a 1-year call. We used to do it annually. We since moved to a 2-year process. And for this one, we had up to $2.7 million and 5310 funding over those 2 fiscal years with which to distribute through the urbanized area to subrecipients. So this is the schedule. We are on schedule. I wasn't sure we were going to be able to keep the schedule, but we were able to keep the original schedule because I did talk about delaying this approval until June. But once we got through the evaluation process, we realized that we could move forward with the original schedule. So we are here asking for a recommendation. And then we'll be taking that recommendation to the policy board on May 8th. And then at that point, we hand everything over to the grant manager, Alex Lorio, over at Cap Metro to develop the grant agreements, which should be executed before the fiscal year. So this is the process. This is a new process that we put together a couple of years ago. We looked at the eligibility, so making sure that it serves the urbanized area. Again, we're using the urbanized area, the current urbanized area, though that is will soon change in the near future. So, and then we looked at sponsor and activity, of course. One of the critical things I just want to point out is that we have majority of the money has to be spent on traditional activities. These are capital expenses. And then we also have operating expenses, which are really just kind of your non-capital expenses, such as staff salary and things like that. So we did a readiness evaluation where we evaluated the budget, looked at the timeline, and ensured they were in good standing. And then we had an evaluation team score all of the projects through the scoring criteria, and then we averaged those out for the final scores and rankings. So here is the final recommendation that we have that I want to discuss with y'all today. So this is a little bit different. We took this to the policy board. We had a kind of a draft recommendation to show the policy board after we had brought this to the TAC. And so a couple of things. Sorry, let me just get something off my screen. So we are able to recommend all of the projects. So we did score them. We had enough funding essentially to honor all of the requests as we received them originally. And so if you look at the recommendation there, we're able to spend all of our operational funds and the majority of our traditional funds. So we are able to fund all of the requests. One of the important things, though, that I want to point out, just because we have the funding, we wanted to still make sure that they were worthy projects that really met the needs of the regional transit coordinated plan, as well as the 53 cent program as well. So that was really critical. So we did move forward with scoring and ranking them as well. So one thing I did want to point out, we'll have a little bit of traditional funding rolling over. But after I presented at the Transportation Policy Board, one of the sponsors realized they had submitted the incorrect budget for their project application. I did look at the funding that we had available, and we were able to make that adjustment. But I did want to bring that up just to make sure that the technical advisory committee was okay with that. I think it was the right thing to do. I think it was just an honest mistake with the budget. We had the funding available, and as we talked about at the policy board meeting, we were asked to look and see how we can spend more of the funding. We don't want to, leave anything on the table if possible. So with that adjustment, we were able to maximize all of the operational funding that we had available. We're not making any changes to the traditional funding just because those are capital expenses. They're fixed. So it doesn't really help to add more funding to a fixed expense like that. So this looks a little bit different. It was the senior access was the one where we made the adjustment. So if you're comparing this with what we presented to the policy board, that's where you'll see the difference. But this represents the adjustment after the fact. So just wanted to be fully transparent. That was the way we moved forward with that. But if anybody has any comments about that, please let me know. Otherwise, we're going to look forward to fully funding everything. So with that, I'll take any questions.
Okay, Ryan, so just to be clear on the adjustment you made for senior access, that was not to the detriment of any of the other applicants?
No, and that's a really good point. Obviously, as a competitive situation, we have to take what we get as far as the original application goes, but because we were able to fulfill everybody else's requests, we didn't, and because the policy board also asked us to spend as much funding as possible and not leave anything on the table, we were able to make that adjustment. So we were able to fulfill 90% of her operational adjustment and 100% of the traditional adjustment that she requested. So yeah, but that's a very good point. So thank you. Otherwise, we wouldn't, as a competitive situation, we wouldn't have done that. But
thanks for that clarification. Just wanted to make sure. Mr. Collins, or Ed Collins, sorry.
Sorry, I just joined in. I just had a question on senior access. What is it, a nonprofit? Is it tied to a city? I'm just trying, what's the organizational history?
Can you say it again? You're kind of organization.
Yeah.
It's kind of they provide general transportation services for seniors throughout their urbanized area. They're one of the more historical programs that we funded over time. I think the majority of these are actually. I'm trying to think if we've got any new other than CARTS. I don't think we've ever done anything for y'all at CARTS, but everything else has been previously funded. But they've been funded every year for like the last 10 years at least.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right. Are there any other questions? Ryan, I think this is a great opportunity to be able to fund everybody to their requests. I think you and the staff did a great job, so we appreciate that.
No, thank you. Yeah, no, it's exciting to actually have good news for everybody for once. So thank you.
Yes, it is. All right, I'll take a motion to approve.
Carrie, it's Emily. So moved.
And this is Kathy. I'll second.
All right, thank you, Emily and Kathy. All those in favor say aye.
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 Hi.
Aye.
Aye.
And are there any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. All right, the hard work's done. Now we move into the cruise part of the agenda today. Presentation of preliminary phasing plan for Project Readiness Program. Heather.
Yeah. Hi. Hi, everybody. So we've been, it seems like we haven't come to show y'all what we've been doing with the 7 million that was allocated to UTPs ago, but we have been hard at work on it. There was a subcommittee that has met a couple times late last year, and the subcommittee's task was to get all of the agency partners together and see which corridors were needed for corridor preservation, which is pretty much means that we wouldn't want to start NEPA quite yet, just because because at the end of NEPA, then you start buying right away, and so there's got to be kind of like a process to where we do NEPA by right away, and then we bring in the projects that have the corridor preservation later. But the intent to that was to get the agency partners to commit to requiring setbacks based on those feasibility right-of-way limits. And so we had corridors slated for that, and then what we did next was that we went and we have a map we're working on that shows everything that we're working on, as the Austin district is working on in these counties that are NEPA and feasibility. We have quite a few. And then we met with all of our area offices to try to determine what their priorities were. And then after that, we met with our safety office to see kind of hot spots for safety. And then what we're planning on doing is taking all that information and determine when and who we're going to be recommending to take on the NEPA and feasibility assignments. And so we're going to be putting that together internally with my team and the CAMPO staff and the GEC, and present that to the subcommittee early May. And then we'll bring that to the TAC probably at the next TAC meeting to really show it. It's pretty impressive when you look on the map and you see everything that we're doing and then what we're committed to. But it is quite a lot of work to determine resources and which one is the most priority corridors, because we do have a lot that came back online about a year ago. And so yeah, that's where we are. I'll ask if anybody has questions on that.
Thanks, Heather. Any questions for Heather? Charlie Watts.
You said 7 million, and I remember a point in time where TxDOT was going to go back and look for additional funding to maybe do some more further analysis on the corridors. Did that not occur?
I never committed to looking for any money. What I committed to was using our PEPS our PEPS contracts.
Okay.
What we're doing is
that's what I'm referring to, the PEPS.
Yeah. So that's what we're doing. We're first determining which of those corridors line up with area office and CAMPO priorities, and lines up with both of those priorities, then we'll probably, like, the advanced project development, schematic and environmental teams will manage and lead those NEPA contracts. And then we already have the corridor north of 290, 973 and Palmer Lane feasibility. We have the 973 NEPA and Palmer feasibility underway, getting under contract. And then we're going to determine which ones of those corridors that TxDOT needs assistance through CAMPO to help PM those studies. And what we're leaning toward is getting CAMPO to help with the feasibility studies and for us to take on the NEPA projects. And we have a lot of projects that are currently under study: 812, 290, 281. There's just a lot that will be coming offline within the next 6 months to year and a half. then we can just slate in the next ones to do NEPA and whether we need help with those or if we're going to take those on. So we're almost there. But yes, to answer your question, we will be using our contracts once we determine the level and the limits for each corridor.
Okay. I may have another question, but I'll let others go
Okay.
ahead.
All right.
Thanks, Heather. All right, Ed Collins, I believe you were next.
Yeah, Heather, I was curious as to, there's a section of US 183 that in the southeast portion of Travis County that has from SH 130 going north to just south of the airport at FM 812. You know, I just kind of look at the newspaper from time to time, and there's some pretty horrific accidents that happen. It's usually multiple people in those accidents. You know, I guess maybe due to the demographics. So I was curious as to whether that's on your list.
Yeah, we actually have a contract for that, and back in 2020 when we kind of had to rein our budget in on our PEPS consultant contracts, that has kicked back off now. RTG is doing that study, and we will be going out to the public. We'll probably be doing MAPOs on that after the I-35 ROD, and we're looking at September of this year. So 290 west to Dripping Springs and 183 south of 71 to 130 are two of the big ones that we're going to be coming out here in the fall to really show our alignments, because on both of those we've already gone out to the public with blank maps, and so this would be our opportunity to kind of show where we've come since then.
Great, thank you. Appreciate the information.
All right, Bob Day.
Just wanted to express my appreciation to Heather and to TxDOT for taking this extraordinary step and to encourage you to continue this effort in the coming years. Heather, a sincere thank you for your efforts.
Yeah, you bet. It's exciting to when you see the map, it's pretty impressive on everything that we've targeted to work on, and I think we can get a good 5-10 year plan on priorities and when we can start each next. But thank you, Bob.
Gary, this is Ashby.
Yes, sir.
I also want to say thank you to Heather and to the Austin District Office, and also to Bob Day for his chairmanship of the subcommittee. We started out on this, and I didn't think we were going to be able to get very far with the funding we had available to us, but this has gone much further than I expected, and I'm really, really happy about where we are.
Good deal.
I would have to agree with those points. All right, I see no other hands raised. Any other questions or comments for Heather before we move on? Heather, thank you very much. Thanks for the presentation, and I agree. I support the previous comments. This is a Herculean effort that you carried forward. So thank you.
You bet. Thank you.
All right, moving on. Item number 6, presentation of draft FY 2024 and 2025 Unified Planning Work Program. Teresa.
Good afternoon. CAMPO has developed its draft fiscal years 2024 and 2025 UPWP, which is our Unified Planning Work Program. It's a federally required document. FHWA and TxDOT approved the template that we are using for the 2 new fiscal years. The budget is based on $6.2 million of PL funds that we received from FHWA for fiscal year 2022 and 2023. Next slide, please. This UPWP identifies work tasks, and the 5 main tasks are administration, data development, short-range planning, the metropolitan transportation plans, and special studies. We include studies from our agencies around the CAMPO region to be included in the UPWP. This is a federal law that requires it, and we include those in task 4. We did receive quite a bit of studies. So if we have any that are still coming in, those will go into our final UPWP. Next slide, please. So the draft is being presented today to the TAC, but it will also go to the Transportation Policy Board on May 8th. And the final will come back to the TAC on May 22nd. We're asking, on that date, we will be asking for a recommendation from the TAC. The Transportation Policy Board requires that the TAC give approval on the UPWP development, but not its amendment. And then we will be taking the final to the Transportation Policy Board on June 12th. If you have any comments or any studies that you would like to include in the UPWP, you can send those to me. That's teresa.hernandez@campotexas.org. And I'll answer any questions at this time.
All right, Teresa, thank you. Are there questions or comments for Teresa on this item?
This is Kathy. I just have a quick one for Teresa. Just wondering when you would want your comments by. Do you have a deadline for comments from the TAC?
I would probably say maybe the first, after the Transportation Policy Board. So maybe the first week of after the Policy Board meeting. That way we can have the final ready.
The 15th.
The 15th? Let's say May 15th. That way we can get those incorporated into the final UPWP before we go back to the TAC.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, are there any other questions? All right, very good. Thank you. Moving on. Item number 7, discussion on carbon reduction program, the funding allocation. Back to Ryan.
Hey, thank you. So just wanted to bring back, this slide is really just kind of a reminder of what the carbon reduction program is. It's a new program from the IIJ, and it provides funding for really a wide range of projects that reduce transportation emissions. We're going to receive approximately $22 million for distribution within the TMA through 2026. And so the program requires that do include a 4-year obligation limitation. So like TAPA, it does have a kind of a rather tight time limit to get these obligated to projects. And then we also require a 20% local match, and then adopting regional reduction strategies as well. So if y'all remember, we did allocate funding for a regional mobile emission reduction plan. And so right now we do currently have about $7.7 million available for allocation. And then come the next fiscal year, October 1st, we'll get another $4.5 million for a total of $12.1 million estimated, really. So really wanted to talk about today, there are 2 programs that I mentioned before that are in the amendment cycle as well. And that's really looking to utilize the existing carbon reduction funding that we have. So one recommendation is for the Regional Transportation Demand Management Program that we've spoken about a couple of times this year. So we're going to be requesting $4 million for the continuation of that program. That was presented to the TAC last month, as well as at the Policy Board as well. And then I know in January, when we had kind of an at-length discussion of what to do with this funding, the TAC seemed to express unanimous support for allocating those funds. And so I'll shift this over to Nirav in a second to kind of talk about what was in the background materials. But also want to talk about the other thing is that we finished our review of the deferred projects along with TxDOT. And so we did identify partially deferred ITS projects that meets the CRP eligibility and project readiness requirements. That's the SH71. The limits are from RM620 to Silver Mine Drive. This is essentially from B Cave to the Oak Hill Y. So that's to install an advanced traffic management system. So if you look in your background materials, you can see the original limits of the projects and what is currently unfunded. And also included a partial application, the original application for 2018. So it was evaluated back in 2018. And so we are recommending that to be refunded. One of the things that we talked about, obviously, was that, we wanted to prioritize the deferred project list, any projects that are available. So in discussions with TxDOT, this one was identified as met kind of all the criteria and is eligible for the funding. So we are going to make that recommendation. And so I just wanted to bring that to the Technical Advisory Committee for any questions on that project or any comments on that. Again, this is an information item. One thing I do want to point out is, and the reason it's an information item is that we don't necessarily have a process for allocating the CRP funding yet. That's going to be part of the mobile emission reduction plan, is putting together a process for selecting projects for CRP funding. But absent of that process, we just, if the Technical Advisory Committee wants to make a recommendation on this, I would, ask for that. Please feel free to do so. But with that, I'm going to pass this over to Neer so we can talk more about the Transportation Demand Management Program. And then if you have any questions about the ITS project and specifics on that, I'm going to see if TxDOT is available to answer this question. So with that, there you go.
Thanks, Ryan. Just as Ryan said, we talked about this last month. Basically, just as a refresher, the TDM program is going to set up a series of strategies for the next 4 years across the region. The things that we're going to start off with almost immediately are probably going to be the school pool initiative and essential worker outreach. But we're also going to be working with TxDOT on our congested corridors and then, looking at the regional guaranteed ride home, the park and ride campaigns, and also looking at large event carpools. But, again, it's just going to be about a matter of scaling up as we get used to running the program. That'll determine how many more strategies we take on as the program evolves. That's all I got for now. We're happy to take any questions.
So, Gary, before you open the floor for questions, when we presented this at the policy board meeting, some of the board members were asking questions about school pool in particular and worried about liability. We CAMPO staff have since had a conversation with our legal counsel about school pool program, and legal counsel felt pretty comfortable with the program as it stands. They were recommending some conversations about indemnification that we will pursue with Del Valley School District, but we don't see any huge hurdles that can't be overcome as far as that's concerned. So that sort of, I'll say concern that some of the members have had, we think we've now addressed, and we should be ready to take that action back in front of them either next month or in June.
All right, thanks, Ashby. All right, Ed Collins.
Yes, just noticed on the ITS implementation map that most of the corridors are kind of the western side of I-35. But I was curious, do we have another? What are the next plans that are going forward after these corridors get done? Is that something that has been contemplated, or is that something that needs additional study? I don't know if that's for Heather or if there's somebody else. Yeah.
So Ed, I can tell you, these were deferred projects, and I necessarily wasn't in this role whenever they were chosen. I do know Brenda Guerra in the operations section definitely has a prioritization of ITS needs, and we'll be working with her on those. But this 71 is just kind of a legacy need from a deferred project. But I think TxDOT would be looking to fund ITS projects on our own as well. And I don't think we've yet asked for any carbon reduction money for anything that wasn't like on the shelf, ready to go, deferred project.
Yeah, I was more curious as holistic, what's the next set of corridors that we can maybe put on the radar as far as if there's other parts within the CAMPO area that might benefit from ITS.
Right. I know. I mean, I can check with her. I know she and Kevin Plumley are kind of definitely focusing on that. I think we had a meeting that we missed recently, but yeah, I haven't really been able to sit down with her and look at.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Richard?
Thank you for the presentation. Something's wrong with my camera. See if I can get it working. Just real quickly, you mentioned that we don't have a formal process in place to program CRP funding. Oh, there I am. And I understand that. I'm getting up to speed on this. But do you feel there might be room in the future for doing like a call for projects when we need to program this as part of that process? You know, maybe similar to how other NPOs program CRP funding.
Richard, this is Ashby.
Hey,
I
Ashby.
think that's how you doing? So I think that's the path we're on as far as the work that we're doing. So my goal is in the future we would roll this CRP funding in with the normal call for projects that we do, if the schedule will allow us to do that without losing money. But that would be my ultimate goal. But yes, there will be calls. There will be calls for projects.
Okay. Thank you, Ashby. Appreciate it. That's
You're
all
welcome.
I got.
Okay, any other questions, comments? All right, thank you very much for that presentation, company. Item number 8, discussion on CAMPO travel demand model update. Mr. Lancaster.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I'll start with the timeline. We're moving along pretty good, and once we complete the final review of the 2030 and 2050 demographics, I believe we'll be in a good position to complete the model on time. We have run long in the forecast demographics, but it's been a very cooperative process with everyone, and I want to thank every one of you for your input. As you can see, we should complete the model update in late May or June and have the whole process wrapped up around August 1st, which is the end of the TxDOT contract for this project. Next slide, please. We held our third TWG meeting on March 29th, 2023. We completed the final review of the demographic forecast results by the stakeholders, TWG and TAC members that was due at the end of March 2023. And just as a recap, the comments we received from that group, the first round we received 231, the second round was 953, and the third round was 56. So we got over 1,200 comments for this. We've also completed the 2030 and 2050 forecast demographics and network updates are in final confirmation review by CAMPO, TxDOT, and TTI. Next slide, please. We will continue the work on the 2020 base year calibration and validation through the next month. We will also finalize the 2050 forecast network review. And just as a reminder, that network is the 2045 network with a few known revisions being made and cleaning up the network a little bit. And the data sets will be prepared and we will start the forecast model runs. Next slide. Here are the final forecast results for the demographics. Once again, thank you all for your comments. It really helped. And it took a lot of hard work to get to this point, but thank you very much. And next slide, please. And these are the final employment forecasts for the region and the counties. And I'll take any questions.
All right, thanks, Greg. Bob Day.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank Greg and his staff for being such a great pincushion. You really worked well with everybody, and I applaud you for your flexibility, Greg, and your endurance.
It was fun.
Watts. Well, Charlie took his hand away, I guess. I believe, Greg, if I could point out on your...
Sorry, Gary, I was sitting there just talking to myself. So.
Go ahead.
Greg, so on your schedule, the 2050 modeling is complete due to the contract with TxDOT in August, right?
Correct. But
Oh,
once again, that's on a 2045 network. It's not the complete model process.
okay, good. Good.
No,
Okay, that's
no,
right.
yeah, I don't have, we don't have the final fiscally constrained network. So
Right.
once we go through that process, we will add that network in, update also the 2030 if we need to with anything. And then we will do our final model runs. These are just the model runs that need to fulfill the contract for TxDOT.
All right, you answered my question. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Greg, just quick, if you're going to use these slides, you've got a comma out of place on your Williamson County employment numbers. It made it look funky there. 233, 179.
Oh, I see. I got you.
Richard?
I'll fix that.
Yeah, I got some commas out of place on Travis County as well. I think that the 2025 column should be 882,000. And to 2020 also looks like you got a comma out of place there too.
Yeah. Sorry about that. Okay.
No worries.
See, we're just helping you out, Greg, so you can get that.
I appreciate it.
If that's the biggest challenge we have today, we did pretty good. Any other comments or questions for Greg on this item? All right, that is the full agenda. How about a report on any planning activities?
Nothing on our end, Gary.
Yep. Announcements, we will have the policy board meeting on May 8th. And the next TAC meeting is May 22nd. Any other comments or questions before we adjourn? All right, motion to adjourn.
Does that count? Motion to adjourn?
I second that.
All right, we are adjourned. Thank you very much, everybody.